Here we are again, watercolorist, and let's talk about the grapes. Again, let's look at what are the main characteristics of a grape. They're not round. They're oval, but not strictly. None of these fruits are a perfect circle, a perfect oval, a perfect anything. But we're going to work on a grape that is basically oval. And again, we're going to need our light value, our medium value, and our dark value if we want to make this shape look round. Before, you can add, you can either add your water first or go in with dry brush and pigment. I'm dampening this. Both methods are fine. You're going to work and you're going to paint and you're going to get to know your brush and your paper and your pigments. I'm going to let that soak in over and over. You're going to hear me say, please be patient with your paper. And while I'm on the subject of paper, please use a professional paper. Don't worry about the cost of it. Please don't go buy an inexpensive paper because it costs less. The value, the quality of your paper makes a huge difference. We'll go into that later. I'm on Arches, 140-pound rough. That's a very popular professional watercolor paper. All right, that's soaking in. I'm going to go in and add my yellow. Again, any yellow that you have. You see this chunk? Too much yellow on my brush. So I've got to knock that off a little bit. Gonna blend that around my oval so that it's even. Now, because I brought more water to my paper than I did, I'm going to need to let that soak in again. The next color I'm going to use is a yellow-green. So I'm going to use my yellow. Let me show you. And my green. And I'm going to make it more yellow or a little more green than yellow, but not by much. If I want, I can add a little more green, and we will. See that turning greener and greener? I'm going to use that green, and I'm going to put that everywhere except in our light source. Now you see that's bleeding. There's lots of water there. And I'm going to let it. When these pigments start moving around into each other, I commonly call it the dance. They're going to figure out who's going to lead, who's going to be the partner. I'm going to rinse my brush, dry my brush, and I'm going to keep an eye on this. Because if my yellow-green gets too aggressive, I may have to pull some of it out. I don't have to do anything right now. I can erase later, I can add, I can subtract. So not particularly worried, but we just don't want a flat oval of green on our paper. So I'm going to get a green. Show you, it really doesn't, it will get into name brands and all of that later. Plain green, whatever green you have that looks kind of like that. that. And I've loaded it on my brush heavier than I did the previous layer. Now, because this is a smaller shape, I'm working more on the point of my brush. So I'm going to have a dark side over here. And I'm going to let those blend. That's one of the reasons that we enjoy watercolor is the blending, the way it dances around. So now I've cleaned my brush again. And I'm keeping an eye on this. And the paper's dry enough now that it's not blending like I'd like it to. So I'm going to encourage it. Now, if I mess this up, got pages and pages of paper I can practice on. Now, where it's darker, same green, more pigment, less water, almost no water on my brush. But the paper is plenty wet. Now see how it's kind of painting all by itself? For a little variety, I'm going to put my brush with the green in it right into my ultramarine. And it's going to turn this a little bluer right here. See, a little bluer. And I can't describe to you, I don't know how to verbalize to you how much is too much, how little is not enough. Our brushes are made to absorb pigment and water. They're all a little different. So you just need to sort of see what's going to work for you. That is basically a green grape. I may want to add more yellow to it, or one of them. We're going to do a bunch for the variety. See, that's pretty cool. Don't really know until we get to it. Now, as for the top of the grape, it's kind of a cross between an orange and an apple. We have a place where the grape connects to the vine, and it's going to protrude just a little bit. Then we will get into the vine of the grape, but not right now. Hold this up closer to the camera. See how the pigments are dancing around, how pretty that is? Now, grapes, see, come in bunches. So I can, wet or dry paper, I can paint this whole bunch light yellow because I'm going to adjust later on. Staying in my lines. Good motor skill. It does not interrupt creativity if you stay in the lines. So now I had the lightest value on all of them, but they're also all very wet. So I've got my the yellow green that I'm going to lay in over here. I'm not going to over here yet because it's too wet and I don't want these edges to bleed together. And I'm going to put it on this one. Not going to Let's see what happens. If I put it here, bleeds into the other grapes. Here comes our light. Do I panic? No, no, there's nothing to panic about in any of this. But again, you've heard me say before, I'm going to be patient with my paper and let it dry enough that when I come back, you see me diddling with this. This isn't something you want to do. You don't want to be diddling like that. I'm just going to wait for a minute. I'm not going to use the blow dryer because it'll dry too quickly. And I want to be able to put in a darker green and have my soft edges. And in with a darker, and you see I'm on the tip of my brush. This is a smaller shape. And I'm laying in gently. Now, what if I put too much in? Uh-oh. I'm going to rinse my brush, dry my brush, and I'm going to erase. When I say dry my brush, I don't want you to think I'm drying it completely. What I'm doing is, you see up here at the top, I'm knocking off the excess water out of my brush. It's still a damp brush. I'm going to come in and do the same thing down here. If these two bleed together, it's okay. I'll just come back to that. I'm going to get a little darker. I don't want to get too dark too fast. Same thing here. Now, what I'm going to show you right here in a minute is where there's a little chunk of pigment on my brush, and that's going to happen. Got that in. This is dry enough. I can come back. I don't want to paint on the light side of that. So this is the tricky grape right here. It's pretty much in shadow there. Now this chunk that I have, I'm going to just gently dissolve, turn it into pigment, and work it into the rest of it. If that doesn't work, then we'll have to figure something else out. Got my blue, green, just mixed a little ultramarine. I'm going to go in here to the darker side where it is more in shadow. And I'm not using a dark green. I'm using a blue-green here, but it's a darker value than what I've used in the rest of the grape. See, that's darker. Not always do you want to put the same color on top of the same color on top of the same color in an effort to get it darker, because it's likely to become opaque. Now, I just did that. The paper's too dry for that. Damp brush, circular motion, and I'm going to blend that in. Distribute that water a little bit. Now, I know I don't want to make this advanced. I want it to stay real basic. But I also want to say that because I've done this before, I don't know how to do this for the first time. I've already done that. So this is probably looking easier to you than it's going to be when you practice. And we'll smush that out a little bit there. You see how they're dividing into different pods? Can't do much with this yet because that's wet, this is wet, that's wet, that's wet. But since I did it once and liked it right here, I'm going to stick a little bit of yellow and a blobby damp brush, smush it around. I'm going to now, because I really want to work carefully, not that this has not been done carefully, but drier would be a better word. I'm going to hit this a lick with the blow dryer. Now that's nice and dry. Remember, we were talking about our characteristics. A grape, because of its skin, it's a little more satiny than maybe an apple would be, certainly more than an orange, lemon, so on. So I do want to leave a light source, but I don't want to paint around a teeny little dot. So I'll show you more about that. What I'm going to do now is get a dark green, and I'm going to do that by using my yellow, I don't mean yellow, regular green, and I'm going to stick a little red in it. You can't see the little red, and I'm making it dark. Now then, I'm going to make this a shadow shape. Now see, again, this is a small shape. I'm still using, what numbers is a 12. That's probably the smallest brush you ever need to work with if your brush has a nice point to it. It does. So that's where another grape's going to be. There'll be the shadow shape in here, and the more grapes we have, the more shadow shapes we're going to have. See that separating? That's a little harsh. So I'm going to add some water, and I'm going to soften that edge. That's a little harsh, and you just sort of need to work with it until you personally like it. Do you see, again, we were talking about these circles and ovals. Do you see how quickly this can become an olive with no problem at all? Red up there, got an olive. Take the red out, add some gold, we got a grape. Now, red in there, and I am not going to get it all out. Do I care? No. It blended, and it is so slight, it just doesn't matter. Kumquat, same thing, and on we go. So I can build this grape. There's another chunk. And we'll do a bunch of grapes as we work later. I just want to introduce you to a grape. That's about all we need to do right now. But you see how I can build and build and build one right on top of the other. Here with the sepia again. Grape top on it. We will hook it to vines later. I mean, they all come from a stem that goes into the vines. Actually, we don't have that in our bunch, but you can see what I'm talking about here. I'm looking at this one, and it looks a little elongated now that I've put the others in. I'm going to shorten it by darkening in here and give the viewer the illusion that there's another grape underneath there, and I can soften the edge or not soften the edge. I need to mess around with it until I figure out how I want my grape to be. So again, practice your grapes, and we will again build on all of this. I think we'll move next into a lemon and a lime in the same video, and a banana. Then we're going to put them all in a big bowl for you. As you work on these, you're going to mess them up. Feel free to throw them away. Paint on the back. Look what's on the back. The orange, the grape, the apple. And we are not real experienced. You're not at this point, so feel free to throw them away. Try it again. Please use a professional paper. We can talk about that more later if you like. But for right now, paint, 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 blend the colors, smush the colors, move the colors, and figure out a grape. So until next time, again, paint, 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 practice, practice, practice. And if you don't like it and want to throw it away, do exactly that. I will see you next time.